Okay. Hari Om, everyone. Good morning. I hope that you've all had a nice few weeks, and we will be picking up right where we left off. I realized we've had not had class for a couple of weeks now, because of holiday and this and that. But we're back, and I think we might finish chapter 16 today. Let's see. um, we're seeing, we're coming to the end of chapter 16. Devasura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga. Bhagavan Sri Krishna is talking about the divine virtues, and he's talking about the Asuri Sampad, the wealth of vices. And we've seen elaborately Bhagavan Sri Krishna has painted a detailed picture of what that Asuri Sampat or the vices look like in our life. And the purpose of studying the vices is to identify them in our life and try to remove them. And where we ended, Bhagavan Sri Krishna was summarizing the three key vices, having dealt with which, well, you've really, dealt with what has to be dealt with. It is the all the Asari Sampat rests on three vices, which are all pervasive in everybody's lives. In fact, in Ramayana, Tulsidas in the end is describing Kali Yuga. And he says every person, all beings are kami, full of desire, full of greed, and full of anger in this Kali Yuga. These are the three qualities that Bhagavan Sri Krishna has highlighted as the qualities to drop. Dropping which we'll drop all Asuri Sampat. They all go together. So let us chant back verse 21 and then we'll continue. Shreya? त्रिविधं नरकस्येदम्
त्रिविधं नरकस्येदम्
द्वारं नाशनमात्मनः
द्वारं नाशनमात्मनः
कामः क्रोधस्तथा लोभः
कामः क्रोधस्तथा लोभः
तस्मादेतत्त्रयं त्यजेत्.
तस्मादेतत्त्रयं त्यजेत्.
There are three gateways or doorways to naraka, to suffering. And they destroy a human being. They destroy our humanness. What are they? Kama, Krodha, Lobha. Desire, anger, and greed. Tasma, therefore, drop these three. Simple. I mean, if these are the problem, just drop them. One day, a caterpillar was having arthritis, and he went to the doctor. And the doctor happened to be a rat. So he complained, doc, this arthritis is just killing me. I mean, hundred legs, every one of them is in pain. So the doctor said, that is the problem with you caterpillars. You have so many legs. We have 4 legs. Imagine if you had 4 legs, your pain would be like a quarter. Maybe less. What? It would be like 4 out of 100, not a quarter, 4 out of 100. So the caterpillar thought, wow, that sounds amazing. If my pain was like just 4 out of 100, man, how can I get 4 legs? The doctor said, no, 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 don't ask me that question. I don't know. Why are you giving that advice then? Bhagavan, you're saying drop these three, but how to drop these three? That is the real question. Now, actually, the answer is Bhagavan has told over and over and over again from the beginning of chapter 2, coming down all the way in multiple ways in different verses. He's highlighted this issue of Kama, Krodha, Lobha in some way, shape, or form. And so he's already told, so nothing else to say. Now you might be like, no, but I wasn't there. Bhagavan, what do you have to say? Or I forgot. Our next famous statement is, I forgot. Tell again, please. Please tell again. Well, in Manashodhanam also, which many of you just recently studied. Bhagavan Guruji quotes from Bhagavatam how to deal with these kama, krodha, lobha. And there are multiple methods. So let me share, in our tradition, when you hear ideas, you can categorize it in under these buckets. In dealing with these negativities, you can use the method of knowledge, meaning vichara, thinking on these things and their consequences, and therefore realizing how negative they are. Or you can, the second method is to replace it with the positive quality. Whatever negativity is there, you do the opposite. And that is one way of combating that negativity. So you think logically about how this thing is not good, or you replace it with the positive opposite. The other option or the other method is to divinize it. So I have these negativities, but somehow I turn them in the direction of Bhagavan. And the fourth method is to surrender. Because Bhagavan, it's too strong for me. I can't help it, you know? So we'll see each of these briefly for these three qualities. The first one, let us take kama. Kama meaning desire. So think a little bit. In Manashodanam, which was quoted from Bhagavatam, the verse says, Asankalpat jayet kama. We conquer kama, we conquer desire by not having sankalpa, by not brooding over uh, thoughts that come into our mind. As soon as you think about how wonderful something is, the mind will get caught. And that brooding leads to attachment, meaning a feeling that when I get this thing, I will be happy. And that attachment leads to calm, desire, meaning if I don't have this thing, my life will not be happy. And all ads that we see are based on this principle. You see something once and you start to think about the good things about it, and the mind starts to think, oh, how wonderful my life would be if I had it. And so quickly the mind ends up with, if I don't have it, my life is not okay. And it doesn't even have to be something big. You can see something as small as like a $3 grater on Amazon. And if you think, oh, it is so cute, my hand won't hurt when I have to grate ginger, it'll be perfect. Then you think, but I have so many things already. Then you think, but just the thought has to come in your mind about how nice it will be. It doesn't matter that it's $3. It doesn't matter that it'll get delivered tomorrow. The thought has to enter, and that's all you can think about. Should I get it? Should I get it? Should I get it? And before you know it's in your house. That is how desire works. Every small thing has the capacity to catch the mind and get it fixated. And the problem with desire is that it leads to agitation. Agitation is another word for krodha. You might say, well, I don't always get angry, right? But agitation is something that we don't want, right? All desires lead to agitation. And honestly, with desire, we think about it, we've thought about it so many times. It's not like you can fulfill one. Desire is insatiable. You think you can fulfill it just one time, but it doesn't work that way. The best example is the gateway drugs. People say, oh, but there's nothing wrong with using a little bit of marijuana one time, or it's not dangerous. People give all kinds of reasoning, right? But they don't realize that the most dangerous thing about it is that it is a gateway drug to other drugs. So like that, we think about how every single sankalpa that we have in our mind, meaning every fanciful imagination we have about how, oh, something is so nice, that is like a gateway drug. It's just downhill from there, right? So, what we have to do is we have to develop a tremendous amount of alertness. A thought starts to come about how wonderful something is. We have to be alert to catch it, because otherwise, before we know it, we have succumbed to the whole chain of saying this thing is so wonderful and my life is terrible without it. Right? So the first thing is awareness. The second thing is being in the present. Being in the present because desire lives in our mind and our intellect. You know, the mind remembers past things. So the mind thinks about how nice it was when I fulfilled this thing the last time. So the mind goes to the past and it reinforces the beauty of the desire. Then the being in the present means not even thinking about the future. The intellect plans about future enjoyments. You know, when I get this, and when I get that, and when I do this, and when I do that. So the other technique is when I keep my mind in the present, the opportunity is not there to think about how nice it was when I fulfill stuff and to think about how nice it will be when I fulfill stuff. In the present, the mind doesn't have that capacity. The other place where desire lives, all this Bhagavan has told in chapter 3, right? The other place where Bhagavan lives, not Bhagavan, where desire lives is in our senses. Desire lives in our senses. Therefore, practicing self control is another way that we can conquer desire, right? And if we try to control our desires without controlling our senses, our mind, and our intellect, well, that is just like cutting down weeds and watering them again. You can do that till the end of time, and that is all you will try to do. So, controlling our senses, controlling our mind, controlling our intellect are key to developing control over desire. Next comes Krodha. Krodha is anger. So the vichara on Krodha is Krodham Kama Vivarjana. We control anger by dropping Kama because it is from desire that anger is born. Simple, right? And anger leads to total delusion. So Bhagavan even says that anger is mahapapma. It is a great papi because it makes us commit great papa. You cannot fathom that someone could do something that they did when they get angry. It's like you become someone who you're not. Like the Hulk. He can't imagine the things that he does when he gets angry because he can't control it, you know? Um, and like I said, we're not just talking about extreme anger, we're talking about all agitation and all restlessness. So the way to conquer anger fundamentally is by controlling desire. And then lobha, artham, anartham, ikshaya. By becoming very aware of the calamitous nature of wealth. Wealth is the cause of papa, is a famous saying in Shastra. Right? You tell me, finish this sentence for me. Wealth and blank go together. You finish that sentence. What is the blank? Wealth and blank go together.
Health.
And waste, wealth and obesity, wealth and desire for more wealth and family fights, wealth and indulgence, wealth and dependence, wealth and depression. You can go on and on and on in trying to fulfill this blank. Very rarely you will hear wealth and dharma go together. Not that it doesn't, but it is very rare for them to go together because naturally greed has a calamitous nature, you know? You just, you know, um, if you have one thing, like you have one hair clip if you're a girl, if you have one hair clip or you have one pen, right? You will never lose that pen. The moment you have two, you will not know where either is. And that's just the way it is. You think about anything in your life where you have just one simple thing, you'll never lose it. The moment you get a second one, you've lost both. That is the nature of wealth. When you have more, that happens. So we become aware of the calamitous nature of wealth and what it can do to us. Okay, then now, so that was vichara. So you go on thinking on these things. Then comes the method of bhakti, where we divinize our emotions and turn them towards Bhagavan. Right? So if you know because of sankalpa or fanciful imagination, desire for things in the world can be created, then by that extension, by fanciful imagination in the direction of Bhagavan, desire for Bhagavan can also be created. So we the mind has a tendency to brood. So you turn the mind from brooding about the world to brooding about Bhagavan. And how nice it would be if I had more time to spend in satsang. How nice it would be if I had more time to study the scriptures. How nice it would be if I had more time to go and do seva. So you start to brood about those kinds of things which will take you in a different direction. Hmm? And mhm, and when you brood about that, you get opportunities for it. You think about how nice it would be to study Ramayana more, and then you study Ramayana more, and then you fall in love with Bhagavan, and then you want to do that more, you know? So those are ways in which you think about the greatness of Guru. You think about how nice it will be if you get to go for camp to, all the different camps that are going on across the world. How nice it will be if I can go and spend more time over there, right? So desire is not given up, but it is channeled in a different direction. And the reality of the situation is, if we think about Bhagavan, we will get Bhagavan. Kamsa thought about Bhagavan with fear, and he still ended up with him. Right? So you just have to have the desire to have Bhagavan in the mind. And here Bhagavan, Adi Shankaracharya, here or somewhere else, he said something interesting. He said, the efforts that people put in are the same to get worldly things or to get Bhagavan. The difference is that one gives you finite results and one gives you infinite results. We are just so bad at math that we don't realize, right? That is like you have the opportunity to pay the same amount of rent for 20 years, right? Or that same amount that you would have paid in rent, that exact same amount, you pay a mortgage for 20 years and that house becomes yours. Right? But because you don't want to go through the effort of some paperwork, you're like, no, 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 I'll just rent it. You know, I mean, if there's a different calculation involved, it's different, but it's the exact same effort, and you could end up with something infinite. So we try to turn our desires towards Bhagavan. Then Krodha, if you have anger, you are allowed to get angry with Bhagavan. Bhagavan, why are you taking so long to come? Bhagavan, I've been trying so long to get rid of this anger. Why are you not helping me to get rid of it? Bhagavan, whatever. If you have anger, instead of getting angry about things that are worldly, get angry with Bhagavan, because that anger will help you to remove the anger eventually. But worldly anger will only exacerbate it. So get angry with Bhagavan if anger is going to come, right? Lobha. Lobha is greed. We should have greed for Bhagavan if that is our tendency. Greed to chant his name, greed to feel it is never enough. However much I do is never enough. However much satsang I listen to, I don't feel fulfilled. Right? Greed for the name of Bhagavan, greed for the presence of Bhagavan in our life. So you take that same greed and now you turn it to Bhagavan. That is the method of bhakti. Then the method of karma, or action, or doing something, right? What we do, we practice the opposite quality. So the opposite quality to practice for kama is vairagya. Vairagya is dispassion. Mm? So I start to see how much I have to do to fulfill this desire, and then how long it actually ends up lasting, right? So, fulfilling desires is actually no different than gambling. What person goes to gamble? They think, okay, this next investment that I make is going to bring a return. Okay, this next one that I make is going to bring a return. Okay, this next one that I make is going to bring a return, right? And sometimes it does, but the they get so caught up that in total they end up losing way more than they gain, right? Desires like that. I'm going to fulfill this desire and I'm going to be happy. I'm going to fulfill this desire and I'm going to be happy. Actually, the number of desires we fulfill that bring happiness versus the number of desires that we fulfill or try to fulfill that don't bring happiness, it's exactly like gambling if you give a bit of thought to it. Okay? So that's called pratipaksha bhavana, seeing the opposite side of it and then developing dispassion for the desires. Then krodha. Krodha, the opposite quality to practice is shanti. Shanti means calmness. So when anger comes, it comes, whether it comes in a wave or a single thought, if you just give it a moment, maybe a few moments, sometimes a few hours, it will pass. Right? So the advice is don't do anything when you're angry. You find a way to bring calmness to your mind before you do the next thing. Bhagavan Sri Ram got angry with Sugriva when the rainy season had finished, and Sugriva was too busy enjoying the luxuries of his new kingdom, and he didn't go to help Bhagavan Sri Ram find Sita. So he didn't stick up to his side of the bargain. So Bhagavan Sri Rama gets angry, and he says to Lakshmana, "Go and tell Sugriva that the same arrow which killed Bali is still there in my quiver." Right? But he said to Lakshmana, "Go tomorrow." Meaning that Lakshmana would have gotten excited. Yeah, I am going now. And then Bhagavan says, no, 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 go tomorrow. Because in that 24 hours, there's a chance for the mind to calm down and then reconsider its reaction to the situation. Hmm? When you get a text that makes you angry, well, you just put your phone aside and refuse to answer it until you have calmed down and you can rethink about the situation. Hmm? So that is the technique for anger. And the opposite quality to practice for greed, for lobha, is santosha, contentment. Meaning that it's called alambuddhi, a thought that what I have is enough. I have enough. I have enough. That constant thought that is there in our mind, I have enough. If I feel I have enough, there will never be a feeling of greed. Because, I mean, if you feel I have enough, you won't feel like, well, I need to have this. Not that you won't get things, but the feeling in the mind or the craving in the mind will not be there. And that greed will get stemmed by that. Practicing gratitude is one of the best ways to practice contentment, right? So these are different techniques. Now, it is possible to give these up and it is possible to change, but it seems so hard sometimes. You know, after Bhagavan Sri Rama had sent for Sugriv and Sugriv realized what was happening and he had put Hanumanji and Tara in front of him and all of that, right? Now he came to Bhagavan. And when he came to Bhagavan and he did pranams, he said, Bhagavan, hold on. You can't blame me for what I have done. You know why? Because your Maya is very powerful. And you know the problem with your Maya? The problem with your Maya is that it gives us strong kama, krodha, lobha. And we cannot, anybody who is able to conquer kama, krodha, lobha is equal to Bhagavan. And I'm not Bhagavan. So you can't blame me. This is Sugriva coming to apologize to Bhagavan. He is saying it is your fault. Your Kamakrodha Lobha is too powerful. So you can take Sugriva's method also, Bhagavan. This Kamakrodha Lobha is too powerful, and you're the only one who can deal with it. So you come here and you take care of it for me. It's on you. Anyways, when Shivji does stuti for Bhagavan after the war, he tells him that you are like a lion for the elephant of Kama and Krodha. Means when you are there, what can they do? Right? They can't do anything. So you tell Bhagavan, look, Bhagavan, like when you take a child and put them in a candy shop and you tell them don't touch anything. Especially the ones where the bins are easily accessible and the kids haven't eaten all day, and you take them there. Don't touch anything. Bhagavan, you've put me in the middle of this enchanting world, and you're saying don't pursue anything, don't have desire, and as a result of that desire, don't get angry, don't have greed. I mean, Bhagavan, you have to figure it out, okay? I'm going to just surrender to you, and you have to figure it out. So that is the other technique, surrender. You know, um, there are people who don't succumb to this temptation of desire that is, I mean, the desires that are there in the world. Like when l- Nadaji is an example, but if I give that example, you'll say, no, no, no. Nadaji is a different level. Don't give him, right? Then I'll say, okay, okay, no, no. Look, Mirabai. If I just say Mirabai, you'll say, no, 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 no. Mirabai is also of a different level. Don't give that example. But okay, leave all of the great people of the tradition. Even ordinarily, you look around. People who are serious students, they are not tempted by the same things that we are tempted by. Serious sadhakas are not tempted by the same things as non-serious sadhakas, right? So it is possible. And if we really have a burning desire for Bhagavan, see the irony, a burning desire for Bhagavan to remove our desires, right? Is a desire also. So you have that kind of desire. And Bhagavan will send Guru. He will come himself to remove it, right? Just that genuine surrender should be there. So like, okay, now this we can go on and on and on, but these are some things to think about in the effort of trying to drop this kama, krodha, and lobha. Please go on thinking about it. It is not something that we think about one time and finish everything. We have to go on and on thinking about it. But I think it is enough for now. So let us chant now the next verse, number 22. एतैर्विमुक्तकौन्तेय
एतैर्विमुक्तकौन्तेय
तमोद्वारैस्त्रिभिर्नरः
तमोद्वारैस्त्रिभिर्नरः
आचरत्यात्मनः श्रेयः
आचरत्यात्मनः श्रेयः
ततो याति परां गतिम्.
ततो याति परां गतिम्.
एतैः विमुक्तः, O Kaunteya, free from these. Tamodvaraihi tribihi, from these three tamasic gates, meaning these three vices. Who? Naraha. Naraha means human being, a person who is free from these three vices. Let me tell you before I continue what Bhagavan says. Naraha comes from the same root as Naraka. Naraka comes from R. Naraha comes from R. Naraka means that which leads us to suffering, to hell, to sorrow. Naraha means we lead ourselves to happiness. That is the meaning of Naraha, one who has the capacity to lead themselves to happiness. There's another meaning. The other meaning of Naraha is one who does not revel in sense pleasures. It is animals that revel in sense pleasures because they have no other option, right? But the human being has the capacity to not revel in sense pleasure, to guide their life differently. Hmm? Naraha. You know, Sanskrit is just so cool. Anybody who starts to study Sanskrit will realize what beauty and intelligence there is in the language. What does what does the word man mean in English? If there's a meaning, it has come from some other word. It's not just an English thing, right? It'll be rooted in Latin or Greek or something. Every single word in Sanskrit comes from a root. The root is a verb, to do. That implies that every single thing in this universe has a purpose based on its function, right? You start to double click on the beauty in Sanskrit, and Anyways, if I start this topic, then class will finish here. Sanskrit is the most beautiful language, and the the depth of Shastra becomes revealed when we start to unravel the meaning of the Sanskrit words directly. For those who are interested. Anyways, what happens to this Naraha? Acharati Atmanaha Shreyaha. He starts following the path of Shreyas, which is good for him. Shreyas versus Preyas. Preyas is the path of the pleasant, the easy path, and Shreyas is the path of the good, the difficult, hard part. So this person understands that human life is special, and he understands, okay, I understand that I used to do things that were not conducive for my spiritual growth, for my freedom. So I'm going to drop those things. Now I'm going to do things that are good for my spiritual growth, even if they're hard, and even if society says otherwise. Because the values of a spiritual person are different from the values of a materialistic society. The measure of success is totally different. Mm? And once a person starts thinking like that and acting like that, tataha yati param gatim. Thereafter, he reaches the supreme goal of life. And it is called supreme because once you reach there, nani vartante, you never come back. You're gone, and this whole problem is gone for good. Hmm? So now there's so many implications. Bhagavan is saying only if a person is free from kama, krodha, and lobha, can they really be happy? That is one of the implications behind these lines, right? So you tell me, what is more important? Your desire and its consequences, or your happiness? You start to think about it, well, desire, happiness. I think desire equals happiness, but then I realize happiness is different than desires. So then, whichever way I can, I'm like, okay, now I want to try to remove them, right? Use all methods of attack, whatever method of attack. Now you might start to try to remove these negativities, and you might feel despondent, but Bhagavan, I'm still getting angry after trying so hard. You know, I'm still having all this feeling of greed after trying so hard. Well, don't be so sad because, you know, if there's a train going at the speed of 200 kilometers an hour this way, and then that train decides, oh no, I'm going in the wrong direction. Well, first that train has to slow down gradually. It has to come to a stop. Then it has to turn, and then it has to slowly start to pick up speed. Hmm? So now the train that is going in the wrong direction, but at a slower pace, can you say that the train is not turning around? Well, it looks like it's not turning around, but the whole effort of starting to slow down means that it is turning around, right? So it may appear that the efforts that you're putting in are not bearing fruit because you're still going in the same direction. But the direction that you're going in, you will notice that there is a slowing down. That will start. The number of times that we get angry will reduce. The amount of time we're angry for will reduce. So you start to think about it like that. You're not suddenly going to, after lifetimes of being angry, stop being angry instantly. The effort is try to reduce it, and eventually that thing will turn itself, right? You just try to tend in the right direction. Hmm? All right. Now Bhagavan is going to tell us, well, a really powerful thing in the last two verses. But before I tell that, remember one thing on this Devi Sampat and Asuri Sampat. It is not enough to just develop value. It is not enough to just say you're a good person, because a good person is not a mukta person. A good person is not necessarily a person who is free. You can be good and you can still be bound, right? Because goodness doesn't remove ignorance. Only knowledge removes ignorance. So while we talk about the values and their importance, we also have to remember that they always have to be accompanied with knowledge. Because the values bring purity of mind, but the purity of mind is what allows us to gain knowledge. So all the effort to gain purity of mind, and then if we don't fill the mind with knowledge from Shastra, well, you know what happens when you've cleaned your garden of all the weeds and you've made it perfect. If you leave it and you don't do anything with it, they're going to come right back. So before weeds can come back into the mind, as we remove the negativities and as we fill it with good qualities, at the same time we fill it with knowledge. They go together. Hmm? Now Bhagavan gives a warning. What happens if somebody doesn't do this? They don't remove kama, krodha, lobha. You know, what does Bhagavan have to say about that? That is what he says in the next verse. Verse number 23. Yashasra vidhimutsrujya
यशास्त्रविधिमृत्सृज्य
vartate kamakarataha
वर्तते कामकारतः
न स siddhimavapnoti
न स सिद्धिमवाप्नोति
न sukham na param gatim.
न सुखं न परां गतिम्.
Yashastra vidim utsrujya. That person who, discarding the teachings or the injunctions of Shastra, vartate kamakarataha. They live or they act prompted by their own desires. Nasa siddhim avapnoti. That person does not achieve any siddhi, any great result in this world. Nasukham, they don't achieve happiness. Na paramgatyam, neither do they achieve the highest goal. A person who doesn't discard kama and lives his life just prompted by desire, not following Shastra, he doesn't achieve any great result in this world. He doesn't achieve any great result in the next world. And he doesn't achieve the highest goal possible. Hmm? When we don't follow Shastra, see, what are we following when we don't follow Shastra? You have to be following something. Right? So if it's not Shastra that you're following, it's the world, it's your mind, right? We're following the whims and fancies of our own mind. That is basically pouring ghee in the fire of desire. That is all it is, right? See, most people follow society, but who in society is happy? Okay, put it this way. Everybody is trying to become their boss. I'm trying to become my boss. Everybody at work is trying to get a promotion. Correct? You're working towards a promotion. That means you're trying to become who your boss currently is. You're moving up the ladder. You're trying to become your boss. Is your boss happy? Is your boss happy? Well, if you're trying to become your boss means get a promotion because you want to be happy, correct? No one's looking for a promotion to be sad. Everyone's looking for a promotion to be happy. So we look for a promotion to be happy, but the person in that current position is not happy. But I think I'm different, when I am there, I will be happy. Bhagavan is saying, Nasukham, there's no happiness in just following society without following Shastra. Bhagavan's not saying don't get a promotion. Bhagavan is saying when you don't follow Shastra, meaning when your decisions are not backed by the understanding of Shastra, that is the consequence. Now, if somebody doesn't have peace, they cannot really be happy because there's an emptiness in your life. So Bhagavan is saying when we don't follow our Shastras, we're left empty. If you don't follow the manual, you don't get the result that you want. And sometimes we don't follow the manual out of impatience. I want something more quickly than the manual will tell me. I just experienced this yesterday. We're staying with a host family, a couple of, because the satsangs that are going on right now, they're going on in an area that to come from the ashram, the traffic is unpredictable. So we're staying in this area and someone's hosting us. So we decided to make ice cream with the kids yesterday. Well, the ice cream bowl has to be completely frozen before you use it because it's small and it's limited in its cold capacity. And the liquid that you pour in has to be chilled before it turns into ice cream in this ice cream bowl. Well, the ice cream bowl wasn't fully frozen, and we had just mixed the ingredients to make it. And I was like, you know what? Let's just try and see what happens. Well, that just wasted everybody's time. Nothing happened. Now, if I had a little bit of patience, then we could have made it this morning. But because of my impatience, now we have to wait till tonight or tomorrow morning. So, when you don't follow the manual, you think you're being more efficient or you think you're being smart. You're just putting yourself back. You don't get the results you want, you know? So Bhagavan is telling us the manual for our life is Shastra. And therefore, if we want the result called happiness, we should follow what the Shastra says. He says that in this last verse in this chapter. Let's chant it. Tasmat Shastram Pramanam Te
तस्मात् शास्त्रं प्रमाणं ते
कार्याकार्यव्यवस्थितौ
कार्याकार्यविवस्थितौ
ज्ञात्वा शास्त्रविधानोक्तम्
ज्ञात्वा शास्त्रविधानोक्तं
कर्म कर्तुमिहार्हसि.
कर्म कर्तुमिहार्हसि.
This is a super, super famous line. Tasmat Shastram Pramanam Te. Therefore, Shastra is the pramana, the authoritative source of knowledge in understanding karya akarya vyavastita, in understanding our duties and prohibitions, in understanding our do's and don'ts. The only thing that can tell us what our duties are is Shastra. That is the authoritative source of knowledge for what our duty is. Other things and other people and society may tell us, but according to Bhagavan's explanation, they are not considered authoritative. And authoritative means like this. I would have talked about it in this class. Here's another example. You know, if you go to a room filled with musical instruments, are your eyes the can your eyes look at the instruments and tell how good it will sound? This harmonium looks good. So I'm going to choose this one. I'm going to buy this one because it looks nice. It might be the worst sounding one. This harmonium doesn't look nice, it looks old. But that might be the best one. Because the pramana, or the authoritative source of knowledge in the department of musical instruments, is not the eyes, it is the ears. So unless I hear the instrument, I cannot tell whether it is going to be good or it is going to be bad. Because the pramana is the ears, not the eyes. And you cannot have two pramanas for something. The eyes and the ears cannot tell you about the same thing. I mean, you may suppose that, when you look at something, you may suppose, okay, this looks new, so it should sound good. You might make, inferences and all, but that is not authoritative. The only authority for sound is the ears. The only authority for what you see is the eyes. You cannot touch something and say, oh, this feels pink. You can feel it till the end of time and you cannot tell the color of it, right? Or when you put a M&M in your mouth and you can't see it and you have to guess the color. Well, actually, they all taste the same. We just imagine that they taste different, right? You put it in your mouth and this tastes chocolatey. It tastes brown. I mean, you got the inside right, but because the tongue is the authority for taste, but it is not the authority for color, right? In the exact same way, our scriptures are the authority for what our duty is, not society, not not our boss, not our children, not our parents if they haven't studied Shastra, right? The authority for our duty is Shastra. And one who has studied Shastra, then you listen to them. But one who hasn't studied Shastra, it doesn't matter who they are not authority. Bhagavan is very clear about this, right? The purpose of Shastra is Hitam Upadishati. It tells us our benefit. That is the only thing Shastra does. It doesn't care whether we like to hear it or not. If it is good for us, it will say it as it is. That is why in our Shastras, you will find over and over and over again people being called Mudha, Vimudha, Murka. Govindam bhaja mudhamate. You fool. Chant the name of Bhagavan. Which person trying to sell a book will call people in the book fools over and over again? You're a fool, you know? You're a fool, you know? You're stupid, you know? You're deluded. Shastra doesn't care. It calls it as it is. It doesn't have an agenda. Its only purpose is our benefit. So it will tell things as they are. Hmm? Shastra thinks of our benefit. And the way it does it is Shasanat Trayate. In the beginning, it commands and instructs. And then later on, as we get older, it teaches and makes us understand. See, Bhagavan Sri Krishna said, Arjuna, fight. First thing he said, fight. You have to fight. What is this chickenness? Get up and fight. Arjuna said, nope, I'm not going to fight. Nope, I refuse. Bhagavan had to teach him because Arjuna was not a child that you can say, fight, and he listened without an explanation. Right? Young children, you try to explain Bhagavad Gita to a 5-year-old. No, you shouldn't. That's like saying to a 8-month-old who's going to touch the fire. No, 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 wait, let me explain to you what will happen if you touch the fire. It will burn your hand, and then this will happen, and then you will cry. An 8-month-old going to touch the fire, you just grab them. You're not allowed to touch it. That's all. No further explanation. Right? But as they grow older, the explanation comes. In the same way, Shastras start when we are spiritual children. We just have to do what it says. And as we mature spiritually, we understand why it is saying what it is saying. Now, there's actually a Shastra for everything, meaning uh, not Shastra like scriptures. There's a rule book or a playbook for everything. In health, in sports, in science, everything has one, right? So how can there not be a rule book for life? How would we have come and gotten this complicated life without a rule book? If a simple thing like a Lego comes with a book, this is how you use it, this is how you build it to get this optimal result. Something simple like Lego comes with a book, and this complicated human being will come with no instructions. Our Shastra is our rule book. It is our manual. And it has always been part of education in our tradition. But colonization happened, and one of the agendas was to remove this aspect of our education. But we are past that. We have no excuse anymore. We cannot say the colonizers took it out from us, so we have no choice, we're stuck. We have it again, right? So if the next generation doesn't have the opportunity for their life to be guided by Shastra, the fault is on us because we know its importance and we have access to it, right? The next generation should not be living their life based on what the world says. They should be living their life guided by Shastra because we understand what the Shastra is saying, right? So by the injunctions of Shastra, Bhagavan says, Nyatva Shastra Vidhanoktam, knowing what the Shastra says, Karma Kartum Iha Arhasi. You ought to. It is incumbent on you to Do what the Shastra is saying. It, it is not enough to know. Oh, yeah, Bhagavad Gita says all these wonderful things. It is not enough to know how to cook. Oh, yeah, let me tell you how to make the best dinner ever. Most healthy. You can talk from now till the end of time, but if you don't get up and cook it, you will not be full, right? So, Shastra is for us to practice, not for us to talk. There was a poor man who was a shepherd, and he would have never left his village. All he used to do was tend to the sheep every day. Now, it so happened that on his path one day, he found a stone, and that stone was a shining gem. Shiny gem. It was very valuable, but he had no idea. It just looked nice, so he picked it up and he put it on a string. And he thought, you know what? Let me put this on my favorite sheep. So he took that gem on a string and he tied it on the neck of his favorite sheep. Worth billions of dollars, a huge gem. Well, one day, it so happened that a gemologist came to the village and saw this gem. And he said to the shepherd, "Oh, where did you get this?" And the shepherd said, "Oh, no, I found it, um, when I was walking one day." And the gemologist said, "Can I buy it from you?" Yeah, sure. I mean, he's so poor, any money will help him, right? So the gemologist asked, "Well, how much will you sell it for?" He said, $50. $50. That man thought, wow, what a deal I've gotten. And he took it. As he took it, that gem fell to the ground and crumbled. Crumbled. It's not the kind of thing that falls to the ground and breaks, but it crumbled. And then the gem spoke to him. The gem said, no, then he said to the gem, "What happened? Why you crumbled?" The gem said, "Look, this man, when he found me, he did not know my value. So he put me on the sheep. And I mean, I was okay there because he didn't know my value. You knew my value. And $50 is all you thought I was worth? You don't deserve me." This is some little kid story. But the point is, when someone doesn't know the value of something and they disrespect it, it is different. But when we know the value and we don't do anything, that is the danger. You know, one time, true story, a husband of one of the sevaks called me and he said, my wife has been coming and doing seva at the ashram for so long. And she's spending so much time at the ashram, like she's barely having time at home. But she hasn't changed. She's still the same person that she was. Why is she coming? Why are you wasting my time? What am I supposed to say? The point is, you know, those who know the importance of it have a greater responsibility to uphold it. Otherwise, it spoils the name of Shastra also. This man is thinking your Shastra is useless. You have to practice it. That is the danger. Actually, the bigger danger is our intellect follows our actions. Our actions don't follow our intellect. You know, you may think something is important, but it doesn't matter what you think. It matters what you do. Because whatever you do, the intellect goes to justify that. You decide, you know that taking bribes is not good, right? But one day, you happen to take a $5 bribe. And you now have $5 extra that you don't have to account for. Well, one little taste of that, and that is enough, right? Then you start to take it more. That person who thought that bribes were terrible will now start to justify why taking bribes is okay. Or, the government doesn't pay enough, or whatever. They'll give all kinds of reasons, meaning Our intellect follows our actions. Our intellect will justify whatever actions we're doing. So if you know something that Shastra is saying, but you don't do it, it is worse than knowing. It's worse, sorry, worse than not knowing. Right? Guruji had said a beautiful line. He said, we don't reach our goals because of thoughtless action and actionless thought. Because of thoughtless action and actionless thought, we don't reach our goal. Guruji is so wonderful with words, I tell you, right? Thoughtless action means I didn't think before I did when I was supposed to think. And then that is when people are like, oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done this and all of that, you know? But actionless thought is also a danger. Actionless thought is I think about how something is good. I know it is good, but I don't do anything about it. Like I know exercise is important. Back in the day, people just by their living got exercise. But nowadays, the only exercise I get is this. I have to take care of the rest of my body too, right? I know it is important. I feel the pain. My muscles are like, move. But it remains actionless. When it remains actionless, I start to justify it. But if I go and exercise now, they say that, going to the gym is not ideal. You should do more natural things. But then you don't do natural things either. Yeah, thoughtless action and actionless thought are what prevent us from reaching our goal. Now, the consequent question that will come, final question that might come in someone's mind is, but what does Shastra say about what I should do? Because you keep saying, I ought to know, now I know. What does Shastra say? Well, this chapter is talking about Dharma Shastra specifically, right? Living my life in line with Dharma. Well, what Shastra says is I should know my Varna, Ashrama, Dharma. I should know what I'm cut out for. I should know what my talents, my attributes, my inclinations are. And I should use those talents as my expression of my contribution to this world. That is what I should do in terms of my time. Hmm? Then, ashrama dharma. When I'm a student, I should know what it means to be a student and I should do those things. When I'm a grihastha, I should know what it means to be a grihastha and I should do those things. When I'm a vanaprasthi, I should know what it means to be a vanaprasthi and do those things. Like that. Hmm? And a fantastic place to start, if you're looking for where to start, is Sadhana Panchakam. Sadhana Panchakam is a little text of 40 verses. Sorry, 40 sadhanas in 5 little verses. Sadhana Panchakam. Super beautiful text, right? But the shortcut in this whole thing of removing our vices and bringing values into our life, Guruji had told in Manashodhanam also, the shortcut is bhakti for Guru or bhakti for Bhagavan. They're the same thing. There's no difference between bhakti for Guru and Bhagavan. If someone is able to engender bhakti in their heart, the power of that bhakti is so much that it is like a carnivorous presence in our mind for all negativities. They say, no, Rama and Kama cannot coexist. You cannot have Rama and Kama at the same time. If you want to remove Jivan ki Trishna, you chant Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Trishna and Krishna don't go together, right? So, like that, Rama and Kam don't go together, Trishna and Krishna don't go together. You bring Bhagavan into your life, you bring the thought of Guru into your life, you develop love for them, and the power of that transforms the mind. For those who are inclined to bhakti and want a shortcut. If you want a long cut, no problem. That is there also. You're free to choose anything you want. You're free to not follow Shastra also. Anything you want, you're free to do. But you should know whatever choice you make, and you should know the result that it leads to. That is all. In chapter 18, Bhagavan is going to say to Arjuna, I have told you everything, all of this. But now, after hearing and understanding what will happen if you do this, and understanding what will happen if you do that, Yatha ichchasi tatha kuru. As you wish, you do. Not like a parent says, do what you want, but they don't mean it. Bhagavan actually means it, right? So we understand the importance of living our life in line with Shastra and the happiness and peace it will bring to us that we're looking for. And we make changes in our life to accommodate and to live our lives in those lines. With that, this chapter, Daivasura Sampat Vibhaga Yoga, ends. The Asuri Sampat, the wealth of vices, which has the purchasing power to buy sorrow and bondage in our life. We have to give up that wealth. We have to try to remove it. And we have to try to develop the wealth of virtues, Devi Sampat, which is going to bring into our life freedom, liberation, happiness, joy, infinite, unimaginable peace. And with that, this chapter 16 ends. So, as per tradition, we will chant verse number 1 to remind ourselves that the chapter may have ended, but our study of the chapter should never end. So, everyone, please flip back to verse 1. Shri Bhagavanuvacha. Oh, we'll chant it together. Abhayam sattvasam shuddhihi jnanayogavyavasthitihi danam damascha yajnascha svadhyayastapa arjavam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. End of chapter 16.